Hello, everyone. Resume recording. I today just want to show you. I have. Let me see here. There are some new update on the ECRI for the clinical lab equipment. You know, actually, this is probably is about 52 devices. This is real up to date. Okay, the up to date version mean is if I can go ahead and show you. Yeah, it is some the new stuff that some of the old stuff that probably just start from 2020 and then 2021, 2022. So if you look, you're going to see, from the here. It's still, I can, first I thought I wanted to attach all this all together, keep it in one, one file, one PDF file, but it's gonna be a little bit difficult for you when you want to search it in the future. So it's maybe easier just to keep it like this. And upload into the class on the canvas, right? Just an individual equipment. So in the future, if you are gonna try to look for it, might be easier. So what do you think? Is it well? Yeah, I can have all this attached into only single PDF file all together. But that's the thing that you're gonna be able now. You get well. But this one is organized in alphabetically orders anyhow. So some of the devices here is pretty new for the ECRI that they just update, a month ago or something. It's just this month. So if I attach this into one file, one PDF file, it's gonna be easy for you guys to download it. I have to say, I can try that, see if it's attach all this together. It just have only one big file, and then just
I think if you download the compressor, something like that. I don't remember the name of the app. You can compress all the file into one file with
yeah.
less size, so we can download all of them at the same time.
Oh, for the zip file.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can try to do that. Yeah, I can try to just put them all in the same. Yeah, it one zip file. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's probably better.
Yeah, because I want you guys to be able to actually, search it. When you open, you want to open this one at a time, right? You just want to, let's say you want to look at for something, you can just, click one. You just want to look at one only, not all of them, right?
Correct.
Yeah, something like that. So this is, I think that would be, very useful for you guys in the future, because I know in the future that you guys, when you get into the field, some of this stuff you will see it, and you're not gonna know, say, what is that thing? And then you ask them, say, well, what is that thing? Because they all have different look. And they say, oh, they might say, oh, amino acid analyzer, and you can come back, well, how this thing work. If you don't remember, you can come back and get this paperwork here, right? Document and read up to it, right? That's what I want, to give this to you, because this thing you're not gonna find anyplace else. Okay, so I need to make sure that I'll give this to you. All
Oh,
right.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Because I just got this today or this today, and then there's a lot more for sort of hospital for surgery, and it is quite a few more. It take a lot of time actually to extract this from the websites, have the membership website from ECRI. So it takes some time, so I it takes several hours to do it. So I'll see, okay, well, how much more that I can download from the website. I have to do it one at a time, and it's got a lot of documents on that. Okay. All right. So that's for that. For this is just pertaining to that the clinical labs equipment, portions only, and then today let's looking at CMMS, the computerized maintenance management system. Okay, this is everyone that when you get into the biomed, you're gonna have to know how to use it. Okay, so I have one video on one of the webinar from the AIMS, one of the software for the biomedical or the engineering department and facility that what we use. You can look at this. This webinars is showing to give you overview of the system. I want to show it to you so you guys have some ideas that you're going to be using in the field. It doesn't mean that it'll be this program. There will be many different program, but they are different. They pretty much designed the same way. Okay. So I want to show you this one first. This take probably about 45 minutes or something like that. Okay. Okay.
Our presenter today is Aaron Peters, Product Manager of Phoenix Data Systems. Aaron, when you are ready, you may start your presentation.
All right, thank you for that introduction. So we are here to showcase AIM 3. As it was mentioned, we have been in business for over 35 years. We make it our business to listen to our customers and take all of their suggestions and put them into our software. We don't necessarily pretend to be the experts. We give our users exactly what they want. So we've taken that 35 years of experience, we've thrown it into this software, given it a facelift. We've obviously been around a long time. With that, I'll go ahead and show off what it can do, and we'll go here. So to start with, when we log into AIMS 3, we want to have information at your fingertips. One of the goals of AIMS 3 is it should be easier and faster to use. So when you log into the software, we want you to see a dashboard of information that not only is useful information, but also allows you to interact with it. So as a technician here, when I log in, I see my work log right up top. So right away, I can see all the work orders I have assigned to me. On top of that, I can see my PM completion percentage. So I know right away whether I'm ahead or behind based on how much of the current period is left. So I have a 1-month period here. We're almost 30% of the way through July. So I can tell already that I'm ahead of that curve based on my hours. I also have all of my corrective or non-PM work orders by priority on the right side. And then down here at the bottom, I have my overdue work orders as well. Anything that's late, that's past the due date, might be a corrective, an incoming inspection, preventive maintenance, any type of work order that you have would be listed here if it was past the due date. These are all movable. You can change these things around. So if you want your overdue ones up top here, you can just click and drag and change the order that these things are in. On top of that, they're also interactive. So if I come over here and click on any part of one of these charts, it will filter my work log to whatever I've clicked on. So I'm now looking at my urgent non-PM work orders. So I know within a second of logging in that I have urgent work orders. I can click on it and see my list, and then I can click on the go-to button, and within about 2 or 3 seconds of logging in, I'm on my first urgent work order and able to go take care of it. So those navigation improvements are some of the things we're building in. There's a lot of ways to move around the system that all make logical sense and just help everyone get to the information that they need faster. On top of that, you can actually split this out into its own screen. So if you're running multiple monitors, you can pop out your work log, move it to another screen. I'll just move it out of the way a little bit, and I can still get to these work orders from this pop out. So it's all still interactive with the system. If I want to get this into Excel, there's a one-click export. So it's very easy to take my work log, move around the system with it, and keep coming back and continue to work off of this screen. I can watch my own PM completion percentage, so it's kind of a self-policing chart. I don't need my boss to come nag me to get stuff done. I'm going to get it done before anyone has to talk to me about it. Managers get a slightly different view when they log in. They still have all the same opportunities, but when a manager logs in, instead of only seeing their own information, they're going to see all of their employees' information. So now as a manager, if I have multiple employees, I can see all of the PM completion percentages. It's all still interactive. If I come over here and click on this one stat work order, it's still going to filter that down. I can see that it's assigned to Michael. I can even go and view the details of it. If I want to look at my 8 urgent work orders, same thing. So there's a way to quickly see all the information for my entire team and still be able to get that pretty instant drill down to the various records. If, as a manager, I do want to drill down and look at just one employee, I can do that as well. So if I come out here and just choose Doug Brown, I will just get Doug's information. It updates every single chart on the screen to just be Doug. So this is your overall filter for the entire screen, and it allows a manager to drill down and look at just one employee or to see everyone as a group and how everyone's doing. So managers get a slightly different view when they log in just because they have some extra filters and slightly different charts. So they can manage their entire team just with logging in. On top of that, if you need to quickly get to a record anywhere in the system, we have a go-to field up top here. So from anywhere in the system, I can click in this field, and if I just type in tag or EQU, there's a variety of tags you can type in there, and then type in a tag number and hit enter. It's going to jump me directly to that piece of equipment, or the work order, the contract, the part. Anything in the system is available from that list. You can type in just a few characters and it'll take you to it. Now that we're on this record, we start looking around, you'll see some things that are very obvious, but very important to know. It's under warranty, it's under contract, it's marked as critical equipment or a system, and it is down. So the equipment down is a fairly new addition, but it tells me that somewhere there's a work order for this piece of equipment that this equipment is no longer functioning. It was marked as down. There's a workflow to that we'll look at in a little bit, but it's a very important piece of information for me to have right now. Most of these are interactive. This is under contract. If I need to see more information about that contract, I can click on it, see some more information, and based on security, I can actually go directly to that contract to see more information. Equipment down also gives you some information. It will show you any work order that's been marked as down. So here's the work order, there's the information about it, and then again, there's the go-to button, so I can jump directly to that work order and see why it's down and what we can do to get it back up quickly if it's an important piece of equipment to get back up. So just from logging in, looking at this piece of equipment, I see it's down. I can jump over to this work order, see what's going on with it, and perform whatever maintenance is needed to get it back up and running. Over here in work order, all the same messages, all the same opportunities to click on things. You still see pictures on screen. Might be a picture of the nameplate, could be a picture of the equipment, whatever image you want to be visible. And then of course you can have any other document attached as well. So some other common elements of AIM3 that help with speed and navigation. We have a common toolbar across the top. No matter where you're at with the system, you're going to see a very similar toolbar. Every once in a while, a component may have an extra gadget or two up there, but for the most part, everything is exactly the same and in exactly the same spot. You don't have to hunt around for how to save, how to load, how to move through the system, find things. The toolbar is essentially exactly the same. So that helps with navigation. Everything has go-to buttons. if I'm on a piece of equipment and I want to see the history of that, any one of these work orders I can get to. I hit the button, I can see the history of the equipment, I can get right to the work order. If I go back to equipment, I stay right on that tag number, so I don't have to go find a piece of equipment again. It's interactive and it knows where you've been and where you need to go. Some other things that make this stand out a little bit, as was mentioned in the intro, the screens are customizable. So the nameplate section up here, this is any information you want about this piece of equipment. So as I move through and look at the different pieces of this, if I'm over here looking at scheduled events or all of the IS information or the user-defined fields, I still have all of this information visible. So no matter where I'm at in the system, I can see this nameplate. This is customizable. It can be customized by user or by the entire security level. So if you want all of your technicians to see the same information, you can set it up once for that role. And then as techs are assigned to the role, they inherit the security and the setup of the fields that they get to see. For admins or lead techs or anyone with more advanced rights, you can give them rights to set their own fields up there if you would like. So no matter where I'm at, I can see that. On top of that, we have unlimited expansion fields. You can grow these as much as you want. You can add new frames in here to group whatever fields you want together, and then you can add as many fields as you want in each one just by simply saying add field and choosing which type of field you would like. When you have any one of these fields, if you right click on it and say edit, you can both make it required and edit to the header. So actually battery replacement date and battery model both come from this screen. So they look like very important fields because they are to you. Therefore, we allow you to put them in the header, mark them as required, and then they are fully reportable with list view or export. So user-defined fields get as much importance as any other AIMS field, and you can move them where you want and put them in the header and still report on them. It's really good, even though our software has been around a long time. It's very robust, has a lot of fields in it. We don't always catch everything. You may have a slightly different workflow, or you want to start a new type of business. Maybe we don't have the fields for it already. This allows you to create your own fields and continue to work and report on them and chart off them and everything else. So you have all that functionality. Scheduled events, there's a couple different ways to schedule work orders. So you can schedule them right on a piece of equipment. This would mainly be preventive maintenance schedules, but we allow you to create any work order type that you would like. So if you do want to create a project or any other type of work order off of this, you can. So whatever your list of work order types is, you can turn them on or off, whether you want them to be choosable in this screen. But once you do that, you can schedule a project work order. Maybe it's an ongoing project, maybe it's a one-time project. So if it's just a one-time project, come over here, say one time, schedule this work order to generate, and on the date and time you want it to generate, it will show up with all the other generated work orders. So that's one way, is against an actual piece of equipment. However, there are other departments and other uses for work orders in AIM, not just a biomed tool for only maintaining equipment. It's used for rounds. It is used for other departments like IT and facilities, housekeeping we have using AIM. And they don't necessarily do equipment-based work. They do a lot of location-based work. So over in work orders, you can schedule non-tagged work orders. Same setup screen, but instead of equipment information, you have location information. Everything else is exactly the same. You can still choose the work order type. You choose the interval or one time. You can even make it seasonal. So those of us who live in places where seasons change more, we're up here in Michigan, when it snows out, we don't tend to mow the grass. So if we did have a ground schedule out here for mowing or calling in the vendor to manage the grounds, we can schedule it to only run during certain times of the year. Because of the way all the scheduling works, it's very, very difficult if you have to manage schedules at the asset level. So much like our current iteration of AIMS, AIMS.net, our system is actually set up at the data manager level. We want you to come out here to the models or the equipment type, both, and set up your scheduled events here. Once you set up the scheduled event at the model or type level, it will then default onto your equipment. You should not have to manage schedules or create schedules at the asset level at the time you create it. It should default in from the higher level. That's how you ensure the right procedure is chosen, the right frequency is chosen, it's assigned to the right people. You guarantee higher data quality when you set it up at the model or type level. And that's not the only thing you can set up at this level. You can set up your equipment types, priorities, who's going to work on it, which service department, any document attachments. So if you have service manuals, user manuals, any other types of documents, pictures, you can assign those at this level, and they all pull down to the equipment and work order levels. It allows you to maintain a higher quality of data with this software. Data quality is one of the biggest problems in the industry right now. So this is a way to help maintain that quality, because not many people will have access to the data manager section of AIMS. You can limit the number of people who have rights to come out here to create those duplicate vendors, manufacturers, equipment types, procedures that everyone tends to struggle with. So from there, we head back over here to work orders. Work orders has a lot of the same functionality. So you'll have the same information across the top. So we're on an air handler here. So it's under contract, critical system. If we go to any one of these work orders, you're going to see the same information. You'll see the same messages, the same picture. It all works the same. Expansion fields also exist over here, but these are the work order related user-defined fields. So from here, you would be able to create a separate set from the equipment set, because these are now work order related fields. Still unlimited, still able to be grouped any way that you want. Functionality is the same, but it's a separate set of fields. You'll see expansion fields as we go throughout the other components. I'm not going to keep explaining it. They all work the same way. The only difference in the bar up here in work orders is there's one extra button for messaging. This is how you can page your employees. You can email them or text message them. There's a variety of ways you can alert them they have a work order assignment. It can be automatic or it can be manual. If you just change an assignment because somebody's out, change it to somebody else, hit the page button, and it will send off to them and notify them that they have a new work order they need to work on. If you're going to set it up to be automatic, so as soon as it's created, that message is sent out, you can set that out by priority. So if you get 500 routine work orders a day, that might be a bit much to send out to someone's email or phone. But if you only want to send the urgent or stat messages out, work orders out, you can do that as well by priority. Now, we know teams of people tend to work on certain pieces of equipment or certain projects. So you are, of course, allowed to assign multiple people out here. You can come out here and assign as many people as you want. Separately from that, you can assign a vendor. So if the main use case here is probably you have someone who's assigned to watch over that work, but it's actually the vendor that's going to come in and do the work. But you still need somebody to manage the process in the system. They have to call the vendor and set up the time. They have to get paperwork when it's done, close the work order. So that person might be assigned and also the vendor. And then you can notify both parties that that work order is due. Of course, we have other ways to navigate through the system. We have next, previous, first, and last. There's ways to move that way. I assume those are fairly standard. Of course, you can do just a generic find. Neat thing about our find screens is they're also fully customizable. You'll notice a theme with that. So if you want different fields to show up in your search, because you don't necessarily search by some and you want to add others, you can customize that. You can say, I need to search by the equipment description. So you simply add it over there. It adds to the screen for you to search on instantly. If you want different fields down here in your results list, you can set that as well. This all saves against the user. The next time you log in, you won't have to set any of this stuff up. It saves in the database. So even if you log in from a different machine, you'll have all of your same setup. Your header fields, your search fields, anything you can customize will save. So you can always search, of course, and get to an equipment or work order record that way. And then we have a feature here called link. So there's a variety of ways to do it. You can go over here and click email link. If you click that, it's going to open up your whatever mail program you use. We use Outlook here. It puts in some generic work order information and allows you to send this off to someone. What happens when they click on this, instead of logging in and going to their home screen, they're going to log in and go directly to that record. So this is a way to essentially ask for help. So kind of like the chat before, I can email this to somebody and get help with it. Now that we're both logged in, I can chat with them. So we do have chat built in. So I can go over here and I know it was Doug Brown that sent it. I can see that he's also viewing the records that I'm looking at also. So we can open this up and chat. Chat history saved, it's all right there. So this allows me to very quickly and easily get help. Now, because AIMS-3 works on any browser, it also works on any device. So if you're out on the floor with a smartphone or a tablet, you still pull up the full AIMS functionality, including the emailing, the linking, the chatting. So I can literally be standing at the equipment with a tablet or a phone, pull the chat up, get some help very quickly while I'm standing there. So might be a manager, might just be someone, another tech who's an expert on it. Any reason you might need to get a hold of somebody while you're out on the floor. So this is all available from any device, from any browser. Just quickly to show it, if I were to bring this down and show what it might look like on a tablet, it just kind of shrinks things, moves them around a little bit. Might stack some fields up, so you might have to scroll a little bit more, or with the tablet, of course, you click and use your finger to scroll up and down. But all the information is still there. You still have the full application at your fingertips while you're on a tablet or a phone. And then if we go even all the way down to phone size, again, it stacks up a little more, but it's all available. All right, so moving on from work orders, we come over here to contracts. We do have contracts workflow in here. Pretty basic contract information. You have the actual control ID, contract IDs, the provider, your effective termination dates, when it's going to be reviewed, and who it's going to be, or when it is renewed, who it's renewed by, and what date. What's covered, what the contract type is. Obviously, you can have an unlimited number of different rates that they charge you for things out here. Contract totals, and then over here on the coverage log, of course, you can apply different equipment to it. Each equipment gets its own information. As we know, contracts aren't just one set of what's covered for everything. You can have a certain set of equipment that full coverage, some might be parts only, labor only. So there's a variety of things in here, and you can edit this list, of course. You can have different date ranges. Some equipment may be only covered for part of it. Something may be retired early, so that would come off the contract. What's covered under the contract. So you have full flexibility here at the equipment level on the contract, and we also cover services. So services in AIMS are called job types. They're typically used by either the facilities, IT, housekeeping, non-equipment related work orders. So this would kind of be where you have that grounds work and painting and the different things that aren't necessarily related to a piece of equipment is what we put under job type. Those can also be covered under contracts. When you choose that service on a work order, it'll ask if it's part of the contract. And if it is, you can apply the contract and put the contract costs and materials on that work order just based on the type of work you're doing. So it's not just equipment contracts, they're also service contracts, and some may be both. Over here at parts, parts has a lot of same opportunities as everything else. You have images on screen. It's not going to want to do this for all parts. A lot of you are going to have thousands and thousands of parts, but you'll have a set of critical parts, and those are the ones that you might want to throw some pictures out here of, just so that people can make sure they have the right one. Either critical, confusing, or if you have a lot of different types of something, that might be a reason to put a picture out there to see just make sure they're grabbing the right one off the shelf, basically. You can also add suppliers to it, of course. So with this, you can have any number of suppliers. This even works with someone like PartSource or one of those that they might be the supplier. You can add them in here as well. You can track the supplier part number, reorder levels, reorder quantities. So if you drop below a certain number, it can automatically reorder them. That's all set up under suppliers. And then over here at warehouses, of course, you can have many different warehouses. Each facility usually has their own. Facility for us is like a campus. Each one usually has at least one warehouse. A lot of people, it's one per building. They might have a room that has kind of a stock of parts for that building. So you can add as many of these as you have, as many as you use. Some people even put in ambulances because they have an inventory of parts that needs to be maintained. I've seen people put in actual tech vehicles that are used to travel. So there's a lot of ways you can use warehouses in this software. You can, of course, receive parts. You can transfer parts to a different warehouse. We have a full transaction log out here that'll track any type of transaction when it's issued to a work order, if it's returned off that work order because it wasn't needed. If you receive new ones, if you need to adjust the quantity because you took an inventory and there's less than you thought you had, that's all tracked in the transaction log. The on-hand quantity actually pulls out of the log. So it looks at the entire history of that part and determines how much you have based on the entries in the log. It's an interesting way of doing it because it almost can't get wrong because every transaction is tracked. Since adjustments, receipts, everything are tracked in that log, it's the best way to track the quantity and make sure that it's accurate. And then, of course, price. Price is tracked throughout the whole thing. You've probably seen it on the other screen. We have many reporting opportunities. You've seen the charts. You've seen a couple of the exports. We're going to go through a few more of them now. I'll actually come back to export here. So one of the options on the sidebar under every single component was list view. List view is one of my favorite components. We have it today in the current software. We brought it over and enhanced it when we brought it to E3. So this allows you to essentially do an on-screen export. You have all the same opportunities you normally would. So you can turn columns on or off. Which information would you like to see? You can filter any column. Even if it's not visible, you can still filter on it, including those expansion fields. So any user-defined fields, those are all out here as well. And then once you get the results that you want, you can do a variety of things with it. You can pop it out, as I showed on the home screen. You have the same opportunity here to pop the screen out. You can go to any one of those records with that button right there. You can do a single-click export. And then in equipment here, another option is replace. So this is our find replace tool. Everyone has equipment that needs to be updated and maintained. This is a very easy way to do it. So when I have my results here, if I want to replace it, replace any information, I hit replace. Anything that's visible can be updated. So if it's not here, I just need to go back and make sure I view it, and then I can change it. So if we went and took an inventory and I looked at all of these parts and determined that they're actually only fair condition, not good, I can update it. Now, obviously, I can make multiple updates at once, and then I can preview the changes. So I can come over here and say, does this look right? Am I sure that I have the right results and I've updated the correct fields? Once I am, I hit submit. It asks if I'm sure, and then I push out my changes. So now you can see those pairs kind of mixed in there. So it's a very, very quick and easy way to perform updates. It's the same way that you perform updates to PM schedules or work orders. It's the bulk update tool. So it's a very powerful way of using and navigating through AIMS. A lot of people do it when they need to update information. So if I went out here and saw model name was blank and I wanted to start updating it, but I had a wide variety of them, I could actually filter this down and start updating it and just go record by record with it popped out. So I can pop it out here. I can go to the first record where it's missing, fill it in, and then just keep going down the list. It's a very easy way to get that information in without having to go through and do a whole export and import of data. So if it's just a quick single field type of update, this is a very fast way to do it. So you'll see those list views everywhere. They're in every single component, all the same functionality. And down here under export, you have a lot of the same opportunities. You still check what fields you want to show up in the export. You can still filter any one of those fields. Same filters as list view. They'll look very familiar. Once you get used to one, you kind of know both automatically. But then the advantage you have out here in list view is you have some reporting formats. So detailed format is kind of the standard export. If something has two labor lines, it's going to show up twice because it has to show the details of both labor lines. That's why it's called detailed view. Disadvantages of a view like that, it's very difficult to count work orders. You can't use the Excel function to count because that same work order shows up twice. So we fixed that by putting in summary and reporting views. The summary view, as it states, will auto sum the hours, quantities, and costs for labor and material. So you'll get a single line for a work order. There's 3 labor lines in 2 parts. Still a single line. It just adds up the hours, the costs for labor and materials, and the part quantities. So you get the summary view of it. If you combine that with include totals checkbox, which is going to include a grand total line, then it does most of that map for you. So I can filter this down to a particular equipment type or manufacturer model and look up my summary costs for the last month, year, all time. So very quickly and easily, I can come out here and grab a manufacturer model or an equipment type or something and get all of the summary work order information on that. Just a few clicks. On top of that, once I have that set up the way I want, I can save it as a macro. So if this is a report I run constantly, I'm always looking at costs for the last month or a rolling 3 months, let's say, that can all be handled through the macros. So you can put in relative date ranges, and instead of looking only at June 1st through June 30th, I can just say last month, and it'll always be last month. Or I can say the last 60 days, and it'll give me the last 60 days from today. So there's a lot of ways you can report using these macros and relative date ranges. Then it's just a matter of the next time I come in here and load it up. Whatever I had turned on and filtered happens, and then I can go ahead and run the export. Oh, I can also add a header and footer as well. So again, if you want it to look more like a report, you add the header and footer. It's a lot like the Excel way of adding left, center, right. So it auto aligns the information you type in. And then you simply export it to Excel. It's going to pop up and save. And then when you open that, it'll be whatever data you've chosen to do. So in this case, I'm looking at routine work orders assigned to Mike Zero. Or corrective maintenance, I'm sorry, work orders assigned to Mike Zero. So all of these should be assigned to Mike, and it's whatever information I chose to show on here. So in this case, this is summary. So you'll see the hours, labor, total options in here, and there's some with data in them. So it's a quick way to get a report out very easily. Now, of course, we need a way to get work orders in the system. So in our company, that's called EasyNet. So EasyNet is the web request system. It's available both as an internal module. We have plenty of customers who, when their techs are out on the floor, if someone asks them to fix something and they don't have time right then, they will actually use the web request system to enter the work order. It's faster than logging into AIMS and doing it that way. So it is an actual component inside of AIMS for AIMS users to access. However, of course, most people who submit web requests don't work in AIMS. So if you give them a slightly different URL on the intranet page and they click on it, they get a different view. They won't get the sidebar. They can't get to the other AIMS functions in there because they just don't have access to it. Even if they somehow typed in the URL and got to the actual AIMS application, they of course would not have a login. So it's very easy to get them this and have them submit a work order very quickly. As many fields as you want to require, which you can see the required field star next to the problem field here. So I will put in a problem field that you're all very familiar with called broken. And if you can get them to enter a tag number, there's a lot of benefits to that. So if they can enter a tag number in, it pulls in all the tags information, including last known location. It shows them the picture. They can make sure it's the right one. It gives them the same information. However, for them, it's not clickable. They don't necessarily need to see that extra information. They don't need to see the contract details or the warranty details. But this tool, again, is not just used by your clinicians or your technicians. This is also a C-suite tool. We have people who, this is how their C-suite, not to submit work orders, but to look up work orders and equipment. So this is a way for them to look up information as well. So it might be important for them to know. We didn't want to exclude it because we have a wide audience that uses this tool. So then at that point, they submit the work order. As I assume all web request systems work, it's instantly created. It's all the same database. So 5770 here. We come back here and go to work orders. This is the work order that was just created. So there's the broken, there's the equipment that was put on. Because of the way I've set up my system, I have automatic assignments turned on. So this work order, even though it came from someone out on the floor somewhere, is automatically assigned to the people that I want to work on. I may have assigned these directly to the equipment, to the cost center, to the equipment type, to the building, any combination of those. So if I have an expert on a particular equipment type, then I can set them up as primary and they'll be assigned. I can, of course, override that at the equipment level. So if this is a special piece of equipment and instead of the normal primary, I want someone else or multiple other people, I can do that as well. Now, I mentioned it earlier, I believe, because you can see it up here, the equipment down, but now I actually want to show you how this works. So downtime is a very important metric. It's also one that can be difficult to get. A lot of systems, and even our old system, it was manual entry. You don't know if it's down, you don't know when it was back up. So if you have a field, you can enter a number of hours or minutes in to say how long it was down. We're going to try to do one better than that. So what we want is the ability for the equipment to be marked down and back online very quickly and easily. This can't add a lot of time. Again, our goal is to make it so quick and easy to use that techs are spending more time out on the floor doing what they're being paid to do, not entering data into our system. So we've made it very quick and easy. We, however, do not leave the choice up to the clinical staff. Clinical staff tends to learn very quickly that if they mark something as urgent or high priority, or down in this case, that you'll come running a little bit faster. So if you give them the ability to mark it as down, I think you'll find a lot of things down that maybe aren't. So we actually want to leave it up to the tech. So when the tech gets there, decides that yes, the equipment is actually down and it wasn't just unplugged or needed to be restarted or something, they can mark it as down. When the tech marks it as down, it's not the moment they click it. It's actually going to be marked down at the request date of the work order. So essentially the tech is saying, yes, it is down. It's been down since they called it in. So we backdate it to that time, or in this case, forward date it because of the server that I'm using. So it puts that date and time in there, and then when it's marked back online, it is the time that they actually click the checkbox for back online. So when you hit this equipment down here, it actually shows you the work order and allows you to go to it. So this is the work order it's actually marked down on. It's marked down on May 25th. So this thing's been down a long time. But let's say it hasn't been down this long. We just forgot to update it. We forgot to come here and close out the work order. It happens. It happens to everybody. So it wasn't today's date. If it was today's date, it would have been down for 1,000 hours. So instead of being today's date, we are going to take it back and say, nope, this was actually closed on May 25th, let's say, at, I don't know, pick the time, 5:36. So it was basically 2 hours later that it was back online. So that just changed it now to 2 hours instead of 1,000. So we put defaults in there, but of course we allow for overrides because not all, the system's not used at exactly the time the work is done. That's what we would like. It's what most managers would like. but the reality is it doesn't always happen. So we do allow for changing these. They're just default, but if you use the system real time, using on a phone or a tablet or even a laptop out in the field, and they're closing things out as they do them, then all they're going to have to do is check a box and check another box, and that's it. And as soon as the last one is no longer marked as down, the message goes away. Now for reporting on that, we give you ways over here to quickly find what's down. So if you come over here and look for equipment down, you can say, show me everything that's currently down, show me anything that was down but is back online now, or just show me all work orders, which is of course the default. So there's a way to just quickly come out here and say, show me everything that was down and is back online. And here's your list of work orders, including the one I just updated to not be down anymore. So we give you a way to report on these. You can find the equipment that's been marked as down and isn't back online yet. Very quickly and easily is the goal. And then again, because this is list view, you can still pop it out and export. So if you want to report, show me everything that's down in the last month, very quick report to do, and you can export it. All right, some of the setup features of this. So the system has almost no restrictions. I have this goofy description over here just to kind of prove that kind of accepts any character. And then the last one, if you're unsure, is an upside down question mark. Any character in the world is allowed in here. Chinese traditional characters. We have customers in Vietnam and Thailand. They can actually have their own language out here, both as the labels and in the field. So most of us here in the US don't care, but I just did a demo this morning for a French-speaking hospital in Montreal. So at the end of it, I actually brought up a version of this in French. So the entire system, you can change any label, English or non-English, or the whole system language can all be changed at the same time as well. No restrictions as far as field length. So if you want to type a small book in the description field, we will certainly allow you to do that. No character restrictions, as you can see here. And that goes for pretty much the whole system. You shouldn't be able to max out basically any field in the system. So we have that. That's the language piece. Again, you can change the entire system language, or you can just change labels themselves. But every single label is customizable, including the pop-up messages. We have some pretty wordy pop-up messages. So if I just type in a fake thing here, even that no results found, that can be changed. You want that to say something else. So anything that's in the system can be updated. On top of that, if you want to change the way it looks, we actually even have label alignment out here. So if you want to change your labels to be left aligned instead of right aligned, you can do that. So we really let you customize the system to be whatever you want it to be. I'm going to change that back to right. This is where you customize that field header. So the equipment header, using that work order, this is where you set up all those header information at an individual level. You can also, as I mentioned, do it at the security level. But if you want to override the security level, you can actually set it up here. And this is the list of fields that shows up in the header for the user if you want to override the security level. Assignment. This is a way to quickly and easily assign employees in cost centers to multiple facilities. So a facility, as I mentioned, is a campus. Sometimes you have employees that work in multiple places. You have cost centers that aren't just specific to a single hospital. If you have a whole system of hospitals, there may be a cost center or two that the same cost center number, the account code, is the same for all of them. You don't have to create it 8 times. If you have 8 facilities, you can create it once and just assign it where it belongs. Location field. Location, as most things, is fully customizable. You want a free text field. You want how deep in the hierarchy do you want to go? So if you want just facility and building and then a free text field, you can do that. If you want floor and room on there, you can do that as well. So whatever you put on here, that's how deep the hierarchy goes when you go to change the location field. For our ISO customers, you guys are going to want to use the region and organization. That is going to allow you to list all of your customers in there. And then underneath each customer, you will have your location fields that you want. So it's a way for you to set up all the different people who you have as customers in there, so you can very easily see which equipment is assigned to which of your customers. Email setup, this is just what allows the emailing to work in the system. So you put in your SMTP information, nothing exciting there. Then over here in messaging, these are the default fields that show up. So when you email someone a work order, these are the default fields that show up. You can choose any work order fields you want. And you can override these, of course, at the employee level. This is just the global default. So when I have a new employee, these are the fields that are going to show up. But if I want to add another field or two to them, I can do that as well. I can switch these in and out at the employee level. But to go and set it up for all of your employees would be a lot of work, and we don't want you to do a lot of work. So we'll let you set up a global default as well. And then some other settings. So we do have a setting in here for if a piece of equipment is marked down, do you want them to be able to close that work order or not? So if you say no, you have to bring the equipment back up before you can close that work order, don't check this. If you want them to close that work order, then let them close it. They can bring it back online on another work order. There are use cases for both. This is going to be a management decision, which is why we put it out here. Security, much like AIMS today, security is at the field level. So every single field is represented out here. So equipment nameplate, all of its fields, all the location fields, even the expansion fields, they're all out here in security. So if I want someone to be able to edit a piece of equipment but not change the important fields, the manufacturer model equipment type, I can actually secure those out. If I just come over here and turn that off, they don't have access to those anymore. So at the field level, you can turn it on and off of what people have access to. If I want someone to be able to add equipment but not delete equipment, I can do that as well. So a lot of opportunities out here. It's very, very detailed. I'm not going to go through it in any more detail than that right now. But every component out here goes all the way down to the field level of what you want them to have access to. And then this is where you can customize those header fields for the security level. No limit to the number of security levels. So standard set would be tech, tech lead, supervisor, maybe a facility manager or regional manager, depending on how big you are. Might have all those security levels in here, but then you might have one for your contract manager. Their job is just to, handle your contract, negotiate, update the information in the software, but they don't do work orders or anything like that. So you could create them just contract security. Same thing with parts and purchasing. Data managers, this is the way to manage all your lists of information. We want it all listed in one spot. Almost every software I've seen, actually including our old software, you kind of have to go to multiple spots to find all the information. It is all in one spot now. So anything that is drop-down list shows up all in one spot here. On top of that, it's split screen. So it's easy to see the list, see what you're working on over here. A couple of them have this facility filter. So something like cost centers. If I want to see all cost centers for just one of my facilities, I can filter it here and it'll update my list. So I'm not seeing cost centers for other facilities. This is a global list, but because of assignments, these are only assigned to one hospital. Employees works the same way. So I might have some employees that travel, some that don't. So if I just choose my employee facility filter, I'll see exactly who has access to that facility and who doesn't. Hours of operation. This actually takes into account during the downtime calculation. Most departments in a hospital are first 24 hours a day, but some are not, and most of you guys manage kind of some off-site places also. They certainly aren't 24/7, most of those off-site ones. So if something is called in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they close for the day at 5 o'clock, and you have it fixed before they start the next day, it's only been down for an hour. It doesn't matter if it took you 7 hours to get there and get it fixed. They couldn't have used it during those other 6 hours. So it only counts as down for the 1 hour if you choose to use hours of operation in the calculation. I think it'll be the standard way of doing it, but if you want to override it, you can, of course. A few other ones I want to highlight out here. Employee user setup. So when you go to create a user and employee, you only have to do it once. You're only going to come here. This is where you're going to set up the employee, their login and security level information. You can put a picture on there. That's a picture of one of my kids. You can make them a manager. This is where that home screen comes into play. So the manager home screen, I think I may have closed it. No, I didn't flip it. So this comes from this setup right here. So when you choose to make this person a manager and assign them employees, they automatically become a manager when they log in at that point. You can set up their rates. So these would be charge rates, not necessarily pay rates. We're not looking to get into that part of the world with this software. So this would be what you charge for their work. If it's an internal thing, this may not matter if it's all done inside the hospital. But again, for that outside work, certainly for our ISOs, this will be critically important to enter the correct rates in here. Assignments, this is another way to assign at the employee level. And then this is the messaging setup, which as you can see here, I've actually overridden the default because it didn't use all the different field options. So you can override the default at the employee here. So anything related to this employee, this is where it's done. Procedures and tasks is the next place I want to hit. So task results are a big thing. When you're out there performing your procedures, taking readings of things, volumes and temperatures, and the various things that you guys take readings for, you need a place to put that information. So much like games.net, we allow you to put that information out here in our software. The advantage you have out here is this can now do calculations as well. So if you think about this from maybe not a PM perspective, because most PMs you won't need it to do a calculation, but if you look at it from something more along the lines of an AEM analysis. So if you have an AEM analysis out here based on your criteria, this one in particular comes from what Frank Boehner's been presenting at all the various shows. I asked him for permission. He allowed me to use it in the software in this fashion. So I will give him credit. It's an excellent way to do it. It's a lot of customers and prospects I've been talking to have really started to adapt into that same process. So I've kind of adopted it in here in a fashion. So what this allows you to do is you set up each task of what it is. Is it a numeric? Is it a value of 0 to 5 degrees or ohms or whatever it is you're tracking? You have access to that list there. And then there's some other options in here. If it fails or is a no to the answer, do you allow the work order to close or not? If it's a failure, if it's marked as failed, do you want to automatically generate a work order to correct it? So those are kind of a couple of the options we have in there. And that comes over from our current software. We've had that for years. What else this does, though, is allows you to have calculated tasks. So you can come out here and actually create a formula based on any of the numeric tasks that you have. So these are my numeric tasks. I can actually come out here and just type a math formula. Parentheses, times, divide, multiply, add, subtract. Any formula you come up with, it will accept out here. You can use hard-coded values as well. You don't have to use a task. If I wanted to just divide these by 2, I could do that simply by putting the number 2 in there. So you can dream up any formula you want, and it'll just fill it out automatically as you're typing in the rest of the results in the work order. Formulas can also be used in other formulas. So especially for something like this AEM analysis, if you needed at the end to just add those together to come up with an answer, you could do that. You could take the calculated answer with another answer and have it, again, add up, average out, depends on what you're trying to do with it. So from a project or an AEM perspective, the calculations are going to be very, very handy. Even on technically the facility side for doing areas of rooms and things like that, they may actually find use for it as well. We all have calculators. This has one built in. So there's a lot of good use for that there. And then over in work orders, if I just find the work orders here, required field. Have work orders with this information on it. I just don't know that I have one set up. So it's the same screen. You just access it from the work order control here. If I actually go to see if free, one of these work orders has it, I believe. I can find it quickly. So this access from right up here, any work order that has a procedure doesn't necessarily have to just be a corrective work order. It might be, or just be a preventive work order. It could be a project. Even a corrective may have a procedure assigned to it. So you can assign a procedure to any work order and access it from here. Work order type, we're switching away from hard-coded values more to metadata. So what that means is instead of saying preventive maintenance has to be PM or it has to be this phrase preventive maintenance or scheduled maintenance, it's just a checkbox. So anything that you want can be a PM type. So if you want your incoming inspections to be a PM, check it. If you don't, uncheck it. Industry seems to be pretty 50-50 split on that particular function right there. You get a new piece of equipment. Does it count as a PM or not? About half people say yes, the other half say no. User's choice. If you wanted an unscheduled PM, you could do that as well, where if someone has to manually create a PM, I want them to choose this one instead. So you check that type. Those charts and reports that report off of PM all look at that checkbox. They don't actually look at the codes or descriptions anymore. And then here, of course, you can see which ones are eligible to be used in the scheduled event and which ones aren't. You don't necessarily want your corrective maintenance to be scheduled. Kind of not the point. So you could update that and turn that off, and those will no longer be able to be scheduled. So there's a wide variety of improvements out here. Over here in the vendor, we looked at this for models, but I skipped over the vendor type. So vendor type is what's going to make this show up at the various spots in the software. So this, of course, is the manufacturer field. Is this manufacturer or not? Can they also be an equipment supplier? Can they be a part supplier, a contract provider, or a nameplate manufacturer? This nameplate manufacturer is what's going to allow you to track separately which name is on the equipment and which name you call, or who you call when you need parts or service for that. So when you walk up to it, it may say one name on it, it may say HP on it, but that's not who you're necessarily going to call. If they got bought out and they now go buy something else, this allows that distinction. Both of these show up on the work order. So they know who's on the nameplate and who to call. So if someone is completely gone, they were 100% acquired, they no longer exist anywhere, but they still are on equipment, you turn everything off, they still show up as a nameplate manufacturer. That's the only list in the software they'll appear in. So it will prevent bad data moving forward. No one will be able to choose them anymore, but they will stay as a nameplate manufacturer. Of course, you can have multiple addresses. Everyone has many different addresses and contacts for vendors and manufacturers. You have a service number, a sales number, a lot of different phone numbers and addresses for getting a hold and mailing things in. So we, of course, allow for all of that as well. I think that's about it for data managers. There's so much else out here. All the defaults over here at equipment type where you can set default priorities, scheduled events out here. You can put attachments that pull down to equipment and work orders. That, again, I assume is all fairly standard compared to other systems, certainly compared to our current software, AIMS.net. All of this is over there as well. Location tree has a pretty neat feature in it. I'll show you what it looks like just by dropping one of these down. So to get numbered rooms in there, a lot of places have numbered rooms, either patient rooms or some places even number all of their rooms and throw a barcode above it. They can just scan it and get to that information. So if you have something like that in your hospital, certainly patient rooms that are numbered, we have ways of getting that in here so that you can actually use the hierarchy without it taking you weeks and months to enter that data. So over here under multi-add, if I choose floor and hit multi-add, it's going to say what children of this you want to add. So in this case, patient room. I've already added these, So I'm not going to do it again, but I will just show you what to do. So you come over here and say patient room. I want to start at 100. I want to add 50 of them. And in this case, I actually am using dual occupancy rooms, and I just chose A and B. So I'll do 100, start at 100, just 50 of them A. And then when I would hit add, I would change that to a B and hit add again. And you essentially end up with this list in seconds. You can still add the one-off. So I added a radiology room there. I have a wide array of things that I've actually added. You can add floors that way. You can add room numbers. You can single add things. If I just come over here and say add, I can add a new office pretty easily. So come over here, add the office, and there it shows up in the list. So you can always one-off add, but to get the majority of your numbered rooms in there, very quick and easy tool with the multi-add. Trying to speed up the management of the software as well as the tech workload. So if we can speed everyone up that uses the software, again, you all have full-time jobs, and most of them are not inside of our software. So we're trying to make it quick and easy for everyone, tech included. Area assignments, this is where you can set up assignments, those automatic assignments I talked about. So if you have an expert, a biomed expert, actually, because you can have multiple experts in different departments. So if Beth here is my expert, she actually has them set up already. So if she is my expert here on suction regulators and sterilization units, let's say, and maybe she only handles those in the main hospital, then I can add that. It'll add them to the list here, and it just throws them in here. As you can see, they're in the list here. She does a lot. And those are the two I just added. And then any work order that comes in and for that type in that building will automatically be assigned to her. It is a way to get things assigned to the right people at the right times. Required fields work the same way as equipment. Every single field in the system can be required or not, user choice. And then at the end of the day, we do allow for some customization as well. Software is used more when it's a little more fun. So without giving them too many options, we allow them to come out here and very quickly and easily choose their highlighting. And for those of you like myself that like dark mode, same options in dark mode. Same highlighting, just the dark background instead of light. There's a toggle up top here as well. It's just going to switch between light and dark with whatever your main theme is. You don't have to give them access to that. It doesn't really hurt because they can't spend a lot of time with it, and it makes it a little more fun and customizable for them so they can use software that they actually like the look of.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. A quick reminder for our attendees today to obtain your certificate.
Okay, so that is the, I think this is kind of short, consider of a review on the, CMMS, the, the computerized data management system for biomedical departments. All right. I going to show you actually today. I upload one of it's a chapter from a book that we use for the textbooks, but it's this chapters is an update in the EMI book talking about the computerized management system, which is this is from Ted Cohen. That's one of my colleagues is up north for the Sacramento areas. He wrote these chapters in the EMI books. So this is in the Atlas book, the second editions. The EMI asked for the permission to reprint it. So in this chapter here, if you want to know more about this computerized data management, called medical equipment data management system here, you can go and look into this chapter here. So I want to make sure that you have that something to read up to. You have any question about anything on the biomed equipment data management, is it will be in here in this chapter. Okay, so that's that's a bunch of explanations, how we go about doing our business on keeping all the records, equipment inventory, equipment repair history, equipment preventive maintenance history, and things like that. Parts dispensing, requests for repair or work orders, create a work orders, creating for schedule maintenance and things like that. They're all in here. Okay, and then you have this material that you can read in here. Again, HTM chapters 8 PDF right here. Okay, and you already see the programs, about close to an hour or so. Right now, we can start on the. Did I? Thought I. Okay, recording. Okay, on the. This one talk about infection control. They have FMEA. Okay, this one FMEA, and electronics medical record, health information records. So before we go into this infection control or FMEA and things like that, I want to talk to you one thing about the HR health, electronics health records. Okay, and electronics medical records. What's the difference between those two? Okay, this is something that you guys need to know about it. Okay, so let's see here we have here right here.
Often used interchangeably, the terms electronic medical record and electronic health record, EMR and EHR respectively, are very similar. However, they are not the same thing. An electronic medical record is a digital replacement for a patient's paper chart. An EMR is accessible by a single practice and is primarily used for diagnosis and treatment. This would include a patient's medical history, previous and current medications, diagnoses, allergies, and more. EMRs aren't designed to be shared with other practices, hospitals, pharmacies, etc. An electronic health record, or EHR, contains all the information in an EMR and more. The primary benefit of an EHR is the collaborative nature. They are designed to be shared with other healthcare providers. EHRs also aid in the level of care provided across the care continuum. EHRs also present the ability to track additional information about patients, including prior auth, insurance, lab results, and more. EHRs also played a significant role in the rollout of Meaningful Use, the Medicare/Medicaid program that mandates the use of EHR to improve patient outcomes and subsequently performance-based compensation. Both EMRs and EHRs make healthcare more efficient than their paper predecessor. However, it is safe to consider an EHR the next generation EMR.
So most of the EMR, it will contain the data. It's actually it's a raw data from, for example, like EKGs, tracings, blood pressure records, and during your hospital stay and things like that, or of infusion pumps, volumes, and anything that they giving to the patients during their staying. So that's something that is the information that hospital use within the hospital, okay, for that treatment, procedure, the process. So that means that data, they not intend to share with the others facility. Okay, that's what it's all the EMR is. And the EMR can be part of that big software that can connect all of the medical equipment, or interface medical equipment altogether, or populate the informations from medical device and medical equipment. Okay. Let's see.
Hello, this is Dr. Eric Bricker, and thank you for watching A Healthcare Z. Today we're going to be discussing electronic medical records, or as I like to call it, why in the world do we still use a fax machine? Okay, point number one, 80 to 90% of hospitals and physician practices actually use electronic medical records now. So it's the vast majority of healthcare settings. Now, 10, 11 years ago, it was like close to zero. It was very few. So there's been this huge change just within the past 10, 11 years in terms of the adoption of electronic medical records. Okay, point number two, has it helped with patient care at all? Has it improved outcomes? So one study found that there was actually a 0.09% decrease in mortality for hospitals that used electronic medical records versus hospitals that did not. Okay, so that's like pretty comparable, maybe a little less, so maybe there's a little benefit there. Okay, keep in mind, when electronic medical records were first started out, they actually caused an 11% increase in mortality. So the doctors and the nurses had a hard time getting used to it. The software wasn't very good. So just know that we've come a long way, and hopefully that trend will continue in the decreased mortality direction. Okay, next up, the electronic medical record marketplace is dominated by two companies, Cerner based in Kansas City and Epic based in Wisconsin. Now, Epic's very interesting in that it is a private company. So you don't hear a lot about it in business news, but certainly in the provider world, Epic is a huge deal. Okay, now the other 49% of the electronic medical record marketplace is just gobs and gobs of other eClinicalWorks, Athena, Allscripts. There's tons and tons of other electronic medical records companies out there. Okay, and that brings us to point number 4, which is low interoperability, which means that those systems have a very hard time talking together. And that is the underlying reason for the fax machine, right? Why in the world do we use 30-plus-year-old technology in healthcare? And the reason is because you literally have to print out the report, you've got to fax it over to the other hospital or the other doctor's office, and then they need to look at it or scan it in or hand type it into the other electronic medical record to actually get data across those systems. Now, there's been improvements, but one of the major challenges is that even within a hospital system, on average, they use 16 different EMRs across all the different outpatient facilities and doctors' offices that are affiliated with that hospital system. So that's the classic problem, right? Something that happens in the outpatient setting isn't communicated to the inpatient setting, and vice versa. So even if you stay within a hospital system, that can still be a problem. And so EMRs have dramatically impacted patient care as well. You can see here in point number 5 that physicians spend 62% of their time with the electronic medical record during the office visit and not with the patient. And we've all seen this, right? When you go to see the doctor, they're looking at the screen and not at you. And you're just not feeling that. Like, that's a fact. So, and guess what? Physicians don't like that. And so as a result, 71% of physicians actually think that EMRs are contributing to physician burnout, because the physicians, they want to spend time with their patients. They want to talk with their patients. And if you've got a 10-minute visit and they're spending 6 minutes on that EMR instead of talking with you, well, that's not good for the patient, and the physician doesn't like it either. Okay. And so if we, as plan sponsors, as employers, as patients, want to understand what doctors and hospitals are going through, then it's important for us to understand the electronic medical record. And that's my point for today. Thank you for watching A Healthcare Z.
All right, so that's something that the point of view from one of the doctors, right? Okay, and they have another short video here before we taking a break. So I want to show you this one here. MR. Okay, I'll stop it right here. Okay, some people may ask, say, well, why we have to, look at this, why we have to know about this. What really happening is sometimes we need to do like, investigation and things like that. You need to go and looking at patient chartings, in the hospital. Because sometimes they have like a charting, the real time, that informations. Even though the, maybe. You have to get access from the nursing manager and things like that in that particular unit to to get the report out. If you have events or sentinel events or the incidents, something like that. So we need to go into this type of system. And the other thing is, some of the hospitals, smaller hospital, may not have the staff we call the biomedical informatics that work with us. They are kind of frontline that work on this electronics medical record, or the EMR, or health medical records system. So we might have to work with the IT to get these electronic medical records talk to our medical device. So we need to know that which device that we maintains have ability, what type of data streams that it will send the information out to the electronics or EMR. If it is just the service record only, or is any setting and things like that. So, or what type of connectors, whatever connections we have. Okay, so that's something that biomed need to be aware of, that the equipment, or know the equipment, the EMR interface, or connectivity and things like that. Okay, so that is very important that you need to know all this. Okay, to really use it, we don't really use the system much at all. Only the time that what I think about is, when in the old days, you go in, you have a whole bunch of the patient charting system, is a hard copy. Now we don't see that anymore. As everything is going to be at the workstations. Anyone want to see the patient charting, they have to go into that computer stations with that, or the computer viewing rooms. So that's pretty much just in this day, in the new design of the hospital building. Okay. All right, that's on that. The other thing is, I want to talk to you and show you about the field of the biomedical informatics, staffing, or the department that we are working with them. In some of the big hospitals, they might have this department that they can helping us of create connectivities between the EMR and the health medical records, things like that. Okay. Why don't right now it's about 8:20. Why don't we take about 10 minutes break, and I will come back about 8:30, and I will continue with this EMR stuff, and I will looking at FMEA and joint commissions and things like that. Okay. All right. So let's take 10-minute breaks.
All right, sounds good.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. So I did try to, actually zip all this stuff, but this one, it actually is in this zip format, I think. Yeah. So I have to try to, but it's allowed, because it's a folder. So this is gonna have to find a way to actually find somewhere. I'll find somewhere to upload into the whole file, the whole folder somewhere. so you can you know, download. The thing is, on the program itself, it doesn't. It's only allowed to upload, in just the individual files. Okay, so we'll see. The next thing as I said, before we took the break, the group that we're gonna work with, and we call the biomedical informatics. This group. I don't know you guys heard about this group or not in a hospital. If the smaller hospital, they probably don't have it. They probably give this responsibility to the IT personnel. For the bigger hospitals, they may have this department only. We also work with the nursing, that some of the nursing is fall into this biomedical informatics, because we have to actually convert a lot of data information from the clinicians into HL7, which is the machine, the device, medical device language for the communications. Yeah. So biomedical informatics is we still consider is pretty new field. Yeah. All right, let's watch that video for this information. Yeah.
Hello, students. This is Herbert Chase, professor of clinical medicine and biomedical informatics, and I oversee the biomedical informatics thread at Columbia. And I'm going to present an overview of the discipline.
I don't think you're sharing your screen.
Hang on, yeah, I just noted that. Hang on just a second.
Hello, students. This is Herbert Chase, professor of clinical medicine and biomedical informatics, and I oversee the biomedical informatics thread at Columbia. And I'm going to present an overview of the discipline. As you well know, probably better than most, that there's been a dramatic increase in the use of technology, and especially in healthcare. Although we're honestly at the very beginning of the use of technology in healthcare, although there has clearly been a dramatic improvement in the technology, but there's a long way to go. And the expectation, of course, is that technology is going to improve the efficiency and outcomes of healthcare. Now, how this is going to come about and when this will come about fully, no one knows. But I do know that you will be a part of this technology revolution. We're at the very beginning of the revolution. And I think you're going to have fun and excitement, an incredible experience in developing. Hopefully some of you will develop the technology and use the technology to improve the health of our patients. To prepare you for the current and future health information technology revolution, we have developed a curricular thread in biomedical informatics at Columbia, which I'll describe in detail at the end of this presentation. But first, what is biomedical informatics? At its core, biomedical informatics is the discipline which explores how using technology and biomedical data can improve healthcare outcomes. Seems simple enough. There's a computer sitting on top of biomedical data. And the computer seeks to make sense of the biomedical data and help the physician practice better medicine, maybe help the patient practice better health habits. Let's take a brief look at all the biomedical data that's out there. Well, there's patient data. There's patient data in the healthcare system, such as the electronic health record, the laboratory values the patient has, the chest x-rays the patient has, follow-up visits, what the doctor says in the notes. Then there are patient portals. These are becoming increasingly popular. I have my own, where I access my own data and I can get information and I can put in information. There are web blogs where patients share stories. There's patients like me where patients share stories. This is an incredibly rich source of biomedical data. The Department of Public Health also has its source of data. Think of all the things it monitors, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later, and is a rich source of data that can be used to monitor the health of our population, as well as individual patients. Industry and pharma have data. My gosh, I think CVS has a better recollection of the medicines I'm taking than I do. They store and actually sell plenty of data to the pharma industry. And lastly, but this is certainly not a complete list, there's the medical information that's out there for us to use as practitioners. There's PubMed or Medline, which is the library for every single article that's ever been published in medicine over the last 50 years. This is where we draw the evidence from which we make our decisions in the care, diagnosis, and care of patients. On the web, there are also specialty societies. The American Society of Nephrology has its list of guidelines. So the amount of data, the quality and the types of data out there are vast. And biomedical informatics basically explores the use of this data to improve healthcare outcomes. There are several areas of focus of biomedical informatics, and we're going to talk about each of them during this presentation. There's clinical informatics, which is focused on improving the health of the individual patient. And some of the examples of clinical informatics are building decision support tools for the provider, such as reminders and checklists. There's public health informatics, which is focused on improving the health of populations and communities. And one of the examples I'll cite in a bit is syndromic surveillance, where we monitor for syndromes such as flu circulating around the world. There's translational informatics, which seeks to link basic science and clinical practice. As an example, I'm going to talk about drug-drug interactions, discovering novel ways. And lastly, a major focus of biomedical informatics is computational biology, identifying individual molecules responsible for health and disease. And as an example, I'll talk a bit about the molecular basis of schizophrenia. Now let's look at each of these topics in some depth. Let's return to the first area of interest, clinical informatics. The major goal of clinical informatics is to improve the health of the individual patient by assisting the providers using the clinical data stored in the electronic health record. The lofty goal is accomplished through the design, the development, and implementation of state-of-the-art clinical systems, including EHR and clinical decision support. So decision support is the future of clinical informatics in many regards, and it's to provide the clinician with the tools to help the patient. A simple example of decision support and clinical informatics is the reminder for the HPV vaccine, human papillomavirus. It is clear from many studies that patients who are aged between 9 and 26 who should be getting the HPV vaccine are not getting the vaccine. This can be life-saving, literally. It has almost no risk, as far as I know. And one approach to improving the vaccination rate is to add a prompt to the electronic health record. Patient comes in, doctor opens the EHR, a little button or a little window opens, and there's a prompt saying the patient hasn't had the vaccine. So a prompt can have a big impact. Again, this would be an example of decision support and clinical informatics. Another example is checklists for chronic kidney disease. Checklists are equally effective as prompts. A patient with chronic kidney disease has an electronic health record tab, which might look something like this. The patient has various lab data shown that reflect the kidney function, and then there's a series of recommendations for the preceptor, for the provider to pursue. Patients anemic, better check iron, better check B12, better check folate. You know, very smart people often forget to do things, and checklists are very helpful. For those of you who have not read a tool about this book, the Checklist Manifesto, I recommend it. Next is public health informatics. The focus of public health informatics is mainly on populations and communities. Obviously, that spills over to the effects on individual patients. There are major challenges faced by public health systems which require informatics solutions. Some examples are protecting us against biological terrorism, natural infectious disease threats, or tackling lifestyle-related epidemics such as obesity and tobacco. One good example, I think, of public health informatics is tracking Zika. Residents in Florida were quite concerned about the early spread of Zika and kept abreast of the disease through bulletins released by the CDC. How did the CDC track Zika? By reports that were coming in, it was added to the database. They were crunching the numbers. They were looking at the number of new cases and the geographical area. And through that, they could make some predictions about where Zika was going to be next. Sophisticated informatics are critical for the person who might be pregnant and is thinking of traveling or lives in an area which is going to be in the path of Zika. Another example that we've already touched on of public health informatics is syndromic surveillance, modeling for the appearance of syndromes. And the syndromes, of course, can be infectious syndromes. They could be cancer syndromes. They could be even autoimmune syndromes. The point is that the CDC and public health informatics infrastructure could theoretically collect data from all these sources and integrate them into a very complicated and robust system to enable researchers to look at trends and then be able to guide practitioners. So I'm on the email list from New York State Department of Health, and I'm constantly getting emails about the appearance of a particular syndrome or concern, and that, of course, is the result of their data crunching by the information represented on this slide. Huge amount of information, only the bureaucrats can grapple with that. Let's move on to another area of interest in biomedical informatics, is translation bioinformatics. The goal is to convert basic science discoveries into clinically applicable knowledge. Researchers in translational bioinformatics leverage a wide range of biomedical data, from gene sequencing data to millions of electronic records, and they seek to develop predictive models to analyze and understand health and disease. Let's look at an example of translational bioinformatics, the discovery of drug-drug interactions. A typical 65-year-old patient takes, on average, 7 drugs a day. That results in at least 20 drug-drug combinations. So, what are the hazards of taking several drugs, and what are the implications of the fact that many of these drug-drug interactions have potential lethality, literally? So the translational bioinformatics teams look for novel drug-drug interactions. My colleague Nick Tatanetti in the department has made the following observations. He has found that drug A has no effect on normal conduction, the heart, the electrical system. Drug B, in and of itself, taken alone, has no effect on normal conduction. And yet, when drug A and B are taken together, it causes prolonged QT, which has the potential of leading to sudden death. Long QT syndrome is known to lead to sudden death. And what's interesting about this, and I think alarming, is that there's no a priori reason to think that each of these drugs, when given together, would cause prolonged QT. There's no theoretical basis known at the time. And so by mining huge amounts of data Nick was able to make this observation. The 2 drugs that he found are commonly used. This is what's troubling about this. First of all, the Prevacid, lansoprazole, is an over-counter one, which means that a patient can walk into the pharmacy, buy Prevacid, and be taking Prevacid on a daily basis without the physician knowing, without anybody knowing. And then let's say they're admitted to the hospital that needs ceftriaxone for an infection, and they may or may not tell their doctor that they took Prevacid that morning, and the combination can lead to sudden death. This is very important, and as mentioned, there's so many drugs that patients take. There's a huge field now, complete discipline, if you will, looking for drug-drug interactions. The last area of interest is computational biology. Computational biologists focus on individual molecules. They use advanced methods from mathematics, physics, statistics, and computer science to develop statistical and analytic models capable of predicting biological activity. It's a fascinating area. We're learning what the causes of illness and health are gene and molecule by gene. One example that's recently come to light is the genetic basis of schizophrenia. For many years, we knew that there was a genetic basis of schizophrenia, seen in higher estimates in identical twins and lesser so in fraternal twins, children, etc. But the molecular basis was unknown. Dennis Vidcup in our department has identified many important gene proteins that could be involved in schizophrenia. These are association studies done with many patients, looking at their genetic profiles and the proteins that they make. And these are all targets of potential causes of schizophrenia. What's exciting about this is that by knowing some of these targets or some of these players, about to develop diagnoses, diagnostic tools, and what can also possibly develop therapeutic strategy. So let's review. What are the areas of biomedical informatics that we've gone over? We talked about clinical informatics, and our examples were reminders and checklists. These help the provider improve the care of an individual patient. There's public health informatics. We track Zika through the CDC, pull data from all over the country, if not all over the world, put it into a black box, shake it, stare it, and then figure out where Zika is going to be next based on predicted value. We have translational translation bioinformatics, where we identify new drug-drug interactions. Take many data sources, put in thousands of patients, thousands of drugs, look for associations, find the associations, and the next thing you know, the drug-drug interaction that is going to be harmful is going to be built into the electronic health record through clinical informatics, and that will prevent doctors from giving those 2 drugs to the same patient at the same time. Lastly, there's computational biology, genetic basis of schizophrenia, as we saw, and this approach, looking for the genetic basis of illness, is being applied to virtually any disease that you can think. So, what is a good definition of biomedical informatics? We've sort of run the gamut and seen what the broad scope of the discipline is. Well, at its core, it is a discipline that focuses on the acquisition, maintenance, retrieval, and analysis of biomedical information. And as we've seen, the sources and the kinds of data which constitute biomedical information is quite broad. And we use this information to improve patient care. Also, down the road, if not already, medical education, and certainly health sciences research. And what do they all have in common? What they have in common is a computational approach to biomedical data. We've obtained the data, we've stored it, now we have it to analyze it. We use all sorts of different programs or different approaches to make sense of that data. It could be modeling data, predictive modeling, it could be simple looking for patterns, it could be creating a network from the data so that we see what's related to what. Whatever the question being asked requires methods, there's probably a method available in the computational science area. So that's biomedical informatics. And now I'd like to just say something about our biomedical informatics thread at Columbia. We have a 4-year biomedical informatics thread that for the medical students corresponds to the 3 phases of the curriculum: pre-clinical curriculum, the major clinical year, and differentiation and integration. We have lectures and workshops, and we also have videos, some of which are construction and projects. As for lectures and workshops, we've got lectures this year. We have artificial intelligence in medicine, which people in December, you've either heard it or you're waiting to hear it, and you're also watching this video, which is an introduction about it. Next year, during the second year, I'll be able to talk about best resources to find evidence. Evidence-based medicine is the basic principle of the way we practice medicine, and there are good resources for you to use out there to find that best evidence.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it right here. Seems like that's not needed for us, so for you to know. Okay, I think it says there are a few more that look pretty good. Hopefully it's a shorter one. It's not like long like that. So.
One of the most important and common questions that I get is, what is biomedical informatics? A lot of people come to our field because they're interested in discovering new knowledge from biomedical data. We have so many sources of biomedical data available to us today. We've got large databases of electronic medical records, healthcare claims, administrative data. We have social media data. We have genomic data and digital traces, all sorts of large data sets that can help us to answer important questions about human health and the treatment of disease. That's the data science component of biomedical informatics. But what's really important about our field is that we don't stop there. We don't just stop with the discovery of new knowledge. We are very interested in putting it directly into practice and informing health and healthcare. That means putting important knowledge in the hands of doctors and patients who are making decisions about their own healthcare, in the hands of healthcare organizations that are trying to improve the efficiency or the quality of the care that they provide, in the hands of biomedical researchers who want to improve the way that we conduct clinical trials and other sorts of biomedical research. In order for us to take this knowledge and put it into practice in human health and decision-making, we have to understand something about people. So there's a strong social science component of biomedical informatics as well, in which we seek to understand how doctors and patients make decisions, how healthcare and public health organizations work, how we can design information systems that are very usable and fit for purpose, that people can use to really support improved health and healthcare. This leads us to the third aspect of biomedical informatics, which is the design and development of information systems and communication technologies that will accomplish these things, that we can use to discover new knowledge from data and inform health and healthcare. Ideally, what we're looking for is kind of a cycle in which we have systems that capture and structure and share information that we can use then to discover new knowledge from data and then put that knowledge into practice in health and healthcare. When students come to Vanderbilt to study biomedical informatics, they study knowledge and skills from all of these domains. They study computational and statistical methods that will help them learn how to discover knowledge from biomedical data. They will learn clinical decision support and other tools and techniques that help us ensure that our systems are usable and useful for health and healthcare, as well as computer science methods that we apply to ensure that the data and the information that we collect is structured in such a way that it can be used for these other purposes. In addition, students take courses in health and healthcare, medicine, and biology to provide that grounding for all of this research. So what is biomedical informatics? Biomedical informatics is the interdisciplinary field that studies and pursues the effective uses of biomedical data, information, and knowledge for scientific inquiry, problem solving, and decision making, motivated by efforts to improve human health. If you're interested in learning more, I invite you to visit our webpage at midschool.vanderbilt.edu/biomedical informatics, or get in touch with me. My name is Jessica Anker. I'm the Vice Chair for Educational Affairs in the Vanderbilt Department of Biomedical Informatics, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Okay, that's something that, yeah. Oh, there's another video, but I'm not going to show this here. It's just something that, how that they acquire a lot more of the information. I think it's enough for us. I got a big thick book for the introduction for the biomedical informatics. I can show you later on. Wait, downstairs. Yeah, for some people that actually like to writing program, working on a computer all day long, and that could be something that you want to explore that in biomedical informatics. Okay, you do maybe a little bit of equipment repair, something like that, some just simple to easy stuff, like you do like a front line for a biomed department. If you need to do some interfacing, like a vital sign monitor with the like a computer on wheels, something like that, you probably can do something like that. This is part of the bioinformatics they do, something simple that we biomed tend to like okay, give to this biomedical informatics staff to do that. Okay, technicians. All right, so the next thing is we're gonna look at that this I think this is part of the FMEA stuff. Okay, and infection control.
My name is Juanita Jenkin. I'm an occupational health and safety inspector for the Ministry of Labor.
My name is Craig Laurie. I'm an infection control consultant with the Ministry of Labor. And today we're going to look at the types of things that we look for related to infection prevention and control during an inspection of a healthcare workplace.
The Ministry of Labor inspects healthcare workplaces to ensure that they're in compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act.
We also work with our partners in the healthcare field, such as the Regional Infection Control Networks or the Ontario Agency for Health Protection Promotion, the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care.
Upon entering a healthcare facility, the infection control measures that I'm looking for may include signage, passive or active screening, and alcohol-based hand rubs so that people entering the facility have an opportunity to clean their hands. When I arrive at a workplace to conduct an inspection, I want to meet with one of the management representatives and also a worker representative from the Health and Safety Committee. The reason that we're here today is we're going to be conducting a proactive inspection of your workplace.
And because we're specifically looking at infection prevention control issues, we also like to talk to the infection control practitioner at the workplace.
Do you have a specific infection prevention and control manual? We do.
Right? It's important that employers take steps to protect their workers from infections by having certain measures and procedures developed in consultation with their Joint Health and Safety Committee.
How often would you take a look at your measures and procedures and revise them? Infection control measures and procedures for workers should be reviewed and revised annually or more often in light of current practices.
Are you aware of any occupational infections that have occurred amongst staff?
If an employer learns that a worker is ill because of an exposure at a workplace, it's required that they report within 4 days to the Ministry of Labor, but also to their Joint Health and Safety Committee and their trade union at the workplace.
An infection happens, we scan our surveillance, we call it, and they get the information right away.
Workers can protect themselves from infectious agents by doing a risk assessment, figuring out what the hazard is in their workplace, and then following routine practices and additional precautions.
I wonder if you can describe some of the training that occurs with respect to infection control.
In healthcare workplaces, all workers should receive training in infection prevention and control.
So supplies such as gloves or masks or facial protection are available to workers when they're
Absolutely.
For droplet spread infections, it's important that a worker take certain precautions to protect themselves, such as facial protection that will include a mask and something to protect their eyes. An N95 respirator is worn when there's a risk from airborne transmission. For workers that are required to wear N95 respirators, it's important that the employer has in place a written respiratory protection program. And it will include things such as the training on the donning and doffing of the respirator. It's also important that the respirator be fit tested.
Sharps should be disposed of immediately after use in an appropriate puncture-resistant container. The container should not be filled past the fill line.
Safety engineered needles are required to be used now by Ontario's needle safety regulation when they're used in places such as long-term care facilities or hospitals.
Food or drink should not be consumed in areas where there is a risk of contamination by infectious agents.
A worker that has health and safety concerns at the workplace should bring their concerns up with their supervisor or their employer.
Tell me if the housekeepers are included in the infection prevention control training that is given.
Everybody that works here.
It's important for everybody at the workplace to follow safe work practices, because in this way we can build a culture of safety at a workplace, which is good for not only the workers, but also the residents, the patients, or anyone else that visits the workplace.
We want to ensure that there is a good workplace health and safety culture where everyone is involved and informed. For more information, please visit our website.
All right. Oh, okay. I just got the book here. Yeah, this is the book about the biomedical informatics. It's pretty big and thick book here. Yeah, it's biomedical informatics. It's just I think it's one of the newest field in the biomedical engineering field, but somehow is mixing with biomedical engineering and plus the information technologies, computer, you're talking about a computer application in the healthcare and in medicine, the biomedicine stuff like that. So this is a lot of stuff that pretty much involved with gathering the information, into the computer system and allow people to utilize it. That's pretty much it, but and it's pretty good, study. And if somebody interested, I can, bring it in by, next time when we go to the lab, so you guys can take a look at the book. And if you want to, working on that field, just on the computers, all day long, that could be, something that you might want to check that out. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I still have the sharing.
Hi everyone. In this video, we will be talking about lab safety, specifically infection control and biosafety. Let's first take a look at some widely accepted safety standards. The first one is the OSHA Bloodborne Pathogen Standard. This is a set of regulations that require employers to protect employees from bloodborne pathogens. The standard includes a determination of tasks and procedures that may result in an occupational hazard, as well as a plan to investigate all exposure incidents and a plan to prevent these from reoccurring. The standard also regulates that there should be methods of compliance for standard precautions. In addition, employers should also have engineering and work practice controls, personal protective equipment or PPE for their employees, guidelines for ensuring that the work site is maintained in a clean and sanitary manner, as well as guidelines for the handling and disposal of regulated waste. And finally, the standard stipulates that there should be a training program for all employees. Then we have the standard precautions, which were introduced by the CDC or Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The main guideline is that blood and body fluids from all patients be considered infectious and capable of transmitting disease. This can include synovial fluid, CSF, and other body fluids, except for sweat. Some of the stipulations included in standard precautions include hand washing, which should be done after touching blood and other body fluids, as well as any items considered contaminated. Hand washing should also be done after removal of gloves and in between patients. Next, gloves should be worn when handling anything considered contaminated, and clean gloves must be put on before touching mucous membranes and non-intact skin. Mask, eye protection, or face shield should also be worn anytime there is a potential for splashes or sprays of blood, body fluids, secretions, and excretions. Laboratory coats must also be worn to protect skin and clothing when in contact with blood, body fluids, secretions, and other excretions. Sharps must also be properly disposed to prevent injuries. Appropriate puncture-resistant containers should be used for this purpose. Finally, we have environmental controls, which must include procedures for routine care, cleaning, and disinfection of environmental surfaces. Next, let's talk about transmission-based precautions, which are added to standard precautions when there is known or suspected handling of infectious agents that require extra measures to prevent spread or transmission of the agent. Included in transmission-based precautions are contact precautions, which aim to stop the spread of infectious agents that may be transmitted through direct or indirect contact. Then we have droplet precautions, which are aimed against agents that can be transmitted by close respiratory contact or by exposure of mucous membranes to respiratory secretions. And we also have airborne precautions, which are geared to stop the spread of infectious agents that remain airborne and infectious over long distances. Then we have engineering controls, which are controls that isolate or remove the hazard from the workplace. Examples of these include emergency showers or eye wash stations, which can be seen in the lower picture, shield barriers, negative pressure, and biosafety cabinets, an example of which is in the upper picture. We also have work practice controls, which are designed to alter the way a task is performed to reduce the likelihood of exposure to infectious agents. Examples of these controls include rules that state no mouth pipetting, no eating, drinking, smoking, or applying cosmetics in the laboratory, disinfection of workstations, no recapping or breaking of contaminated needles, as well as frequent hand washing. Then we have personal protective equipment, which is a specialized clothing or equipment that is worn by an employee for protection. Examples of these include lab gowns, face masks, and gloves. It is important to note that PPE must fit properly to be most effective, and some PPE, like respirators, may require fit testing. Let's next talk about risk group classification of infectious agents. Agents are classified by the World Health Organization based on their ability to infect and cause disease in humans or animals, their virulence, the availability of treatments for the disease, and the availability of preventive measures such as vaccines. There are 4 risk groups. First, risk group 1, which are for agents with no or low individual and community risk. Usually, these are non-pathogenic organisms like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. Next, we have risk group 2, which are agents with moderate individual risk and low community risk. Examples of these are laboratory isolates like E. coli, Streptococcus, and Staphylococcus. Then we have risk group 3, which are agents with high individual risk but low community risk. Usually, these include exotic agents like Mycobacterium tuberculosis, the causative agent of the respiratory disease tuberculosis. It is important to note that organisms in risk group 3, risk group 2, and risk group 1 have effective treatment and preventive measures available. Then we have risk group 4. These agents have high individual and community risk and usually do not have effective treatment and preventive measures available. Examples include the Ebola virus and the Lassa fever virus. We also have various biosafety levels. These levels usually correlate with the risk group classification, but are not always equal. a biological risk assessment is needed to assess the proper biosafety levels needed for specific agents. Included in this assessment is the identification of hazards associated with an infectious agent or material, then identification of the activities that might cause exposure to the agent or the material, the competencies and experience of laboratory personnel, then an evaluation of risks that would cause an LAI or lab-acquired infection, and the severity of the consequences if such infection occurs. And finally, the development, implementation, and evaluation of controls to minimize the risk for exposure. The lowest biosafety level is Biosafety Level 1 or BSL1. Laboratories classified under this level usually deal with agents that are well classified and are not known to cause disease in healthy adults. These agents also pose a minimal threat to laboratory personnel and the environment. Some guidelines in BSL1 facilities include restricted access to the laboratory, hand washing rules, basic work practice controls, OSHA guidelines for handling needles and sharps, decontamination after completion of work at any time there's been a spill, wearing of PPEs, an insect and rodent control plan, and the laboratory facility should be designed so that it can easily be cleaned. Then we have Biosafety Level 2 or BSL2. And these are facilities for agents that pose a moderate potential hazard for employees and the environment. The guidelines in a BSL2 are the same as BSL1 plus the following. Employees have a specific and updated training in the handling of a pathogenic agent. Access to the laboratory is also limited when work is being conducted. Employees should have immunizations or tests for agents handled. Then, biosafety manuals are developed and kept updated in the laboratory. A biosafety cabinet, recommended Class 2, must also be used in the laboratory. All PPE are also required, and extreme precautions should be taken when handling contaminated sharp items. Then we have the Biosafety Level 3 or BSL3 laboratory. These are for agents that are either indigenous or exotic and have the potential for aerosol transmission and cause diseases that may be lethal. Guidelines for BSL3 are the same as BSL2 plus the following. Handling of infectious materials, samples, and cultures must occur within a biosafety cabinet or other physical containment device. This type of laboratory should also be separated from other parts of the building and must have a negative pressure in the room. Ceilings and floors must be solid and any seams must be sealed. And the facility must also be constructed for easy cleaning and decontamination. Finally, we have the Biosafety Level 4 or BSL4 facility, which are for agents which have a high risk of causing life-threatening infection, can be transmitted by aerosols, or have an unknown risk of transmission. Rules in a BSL4 are the same as a BSL3 plus the following. Personnel must demonstrate high proficiency in standard and special microbiology practices. Policies and procedures are established on the collection and storage of serum samples from at-risk personnel. Then, personnel enter and exit the laboratory through a clothing change room. When personnel leave the laboratory, they must completely change clothes and shower. The clothes are then decontaminated before being laundered. This type of laboratory has a dedicated non-circulating ventilation system which is filtered through a HEPA filter before being exhausted. And finally, all materials in the BSL4 laboratory must be decontaminated before leaving the facility. The last topic we will be tackling are biosafety cabinets. There are three types of biosafety cabinets. The first is Class 1. These cabinets allow room or unsterilized air to pass into the cabinet and the area surrounding the material within, sterilizing only the air to be exhausted. These cabinets also have negative pressure. As you can see in this figure, room air is able to enter the cabinet and it is sterilized before it is released back into the room. Here are some examples of Class 1 biosafety cabinets. Then we have the Class 2 biosafety cabinet, which are cabinets that sterilize the air that flow over the infectious material as well as the air to be exhausted. These cabinets utilize vertical laminar flow, which serve as a barrier to particles from the outside of the cabinet and direct the flow of contaminated air into the filters. There are two main types of Class 2 biosafety cabinets. The first is a Class 2A cabinet, which is self-contained and releases exhaust into the room. Meanwhile, the Class 2B cabinet discharges the exhaust outside the building. Here are some examples of Class 2 biosafety cabinets. As you can see, the Class 2A biosafety cabinet does not have a dedicated exhaust, while for the Class 2B, it has a small exhaust that is meant to be connected to the outside of the building. The final and most secure type of biosafety cabinet is a Class 3 biosafety cabinet. This type of cabinet is completely enclosed and has negative pressure. Air coming in and going out of the cabinet is filter sterilized, and the infectious material within is usually handled with rubber gloves that are attached and sealed to the cabinet. Here are some examples of Class 3 biosafety cabinet. As you can see, there are rubber gloves attached to each cabinet, and there is a separate entryway for the infectious material. If you want to know more about the things discussed in this lecture, please check out these references.
Okay, so that's something that because in many facilities, sometimes the people that actually, even though you not work for the hospital, when you walk into many of the different facility, you're gonna need to really observe that what type of the lab that they have. Do they have a research lab? Do they have clinical labs? That when you walk in, there's gonna be many different types of chemicals, stuff like that. There's some sign and things like that that you need to observe that. As far as the orientations part of that, the safeties, the general hospital orientations, you're gonna be required to actually take that class the first day of before you start your job with the hospital. Okay. I think it's another safety. Okay, I'm not sure this is quite long. It's an element. We can watch this a little bit. I'm not sure. I thought we already watched it.
Welfare are also on the line because
I think we already watched this one, right? Let's see. So okay, so this one is the Department of Defense. Yeah, I think you already watched this one. So I'm just gonna stop, the lecture for today at this point. We'll save the FMEA and the detail on the drug commissions, next week or so. All right. And,
all right.
Anyone have any questions at this point? No? Okay, so let's get together again on Monday then, okay? As far as the a couple extra days for the labs, well, let me planning some things, and I'll let you know on Monday, see if we want to meet that at the college, okay, for the lab or not, or when, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good night. Good
weekend.
weekend.
Thank you. You have a good night.
All right. We'll see you guys on Monday.